I believe I've done this before, but I'm not sure. So if I have, it's been years. So I'm gonna do it again. Welcome back to my channel, The Inked Reader. My name is Eva, and today I'm doing the unpopular opinion book tag, just because clearly I like to lose some subscribers. No, I'm kidding, but I do have unpopular opinion. I've got opinions, like as we all do. I wouldn't say they're necessarily unpopular. A lot of people probably share them, a lot of people don't share them, and that's quite normal. But I thought it was a fun tag to do, and without further ado, let's get into the questions. So the first one is a popular book series you don't like. I will share first the books I finished that I really didn't like, and then I'm gonna mention a very popular DNF, which is what I started my January wrap up with. So if you've been following me, you know already what it is, but it's probably the most popular or controversial DNF you can have in this day and age on BookTube, but I don't care. It wasn't for me. But first of all, books that usually are well praised and I really didn't like. Let's start with Fledgling by Butler. Oh, this really didn't work out for me. This is a sort of vampire story, and I had a lot of issues with the fact that we follow a very sexualized child. Yes, she's not a child for her people. She's million of ages old for her people, but she's the body of a child and she has sex with grown-ups all the time, while in the body of a child, and those grown-ups are humans. So for them, she looks like a child. I was not okay with that. I didn't like the plot. I didn't have any issue with the writing, so I will probably give another try to the author, but this really wasn't the right point for me to start, because I was a bit like, I was burned by this experience and I never picked up anything by the author, but I will. I know that I shouldn't judge, you know, this author, which is so beloved, by only this book. This book was big no-no for me. The Bloody Chamber. The Bloody Chamber is another collection of short stories everybody praises, and I found it so boring. I gave up. I sold my copy. I enjoyed semi the first story, which is a bluebird retelling. Didn't care about anything of the other. Maybe I didn't get them. I don't know. They weren't for me. If We Were Villains. Didn't like this thriller. This you follow basically sort of like, it's reminded me of The Sacred History, which also I didn't like. So those two, If We Were Villains and The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I enjoyed other books by this author, one other book by her. I really like her writing, but this book, nothing happens, and it's like 1,000 pages long, so boring. And this one, I didn't like the book. I didn't like the plot, and it's both of those books in theory should work so well for me. Something like Dark Academia. I started to believe that it really, car alarm? It's been like this all day.
2,000 years later.
Dark Academia has been a buzzword on BookTube for so long. So many people, like, you know, become so excited, love so many books on that genre, that I kind of think I started to believe that I would love it too. And those two books taught me that probably Dark Academia is not such a fancy word for me, because I still have to find an actual Dark Academia book that I loved. Lords of Shadow, Cassandra Clare. I used to love Mortal Instrument, and then I don't know, Lord of Shadows was like, nope. I dragged my feet through that book, didn't like it at all. Probably the most unpopular book that I read through all of it, and I didn't like, and I'm so sorry. Please don't hate me, but that's Babel by R.F. Kuang. I loved the Poppy War, and I went into this stunning edition, very good, of the Poppy War, of Babel, very much waiting, you know, for me to fall in love with it. I found it quite boring. I didn't like how one-dimensional the characters were, where the characters were there just as a political statement, and I'm not disagreeing with the political statement that she was making. That's not the point, but you don't sell me like a Dark Academia fantasy novel and make it into a political thing throughout. Like, I think The way she meshes the two things really didn't work for me. Other people found it very clever, and I'm not disputing that. For me, the political agenda that this book had, which again I agree with it, but the way it was done, I was expecting a high fantasy novel with, you know, you can interwoven in political stuff in it, absolutely, but I think it was so heavy-handed. The characters were just there to make a political statement. The magic had no sense for me, and ultimately I was so bored out of my mind about this. I probably went into this expecting something very different of what I have, but yeah, I found this book boring. I found this book dragging, and I didn't love it at all. And the most popular DNF I had, starting in 2024, very strong, and I will watch an adaptation of these. I don't think I will ever read the book. It's The Sword of Kagan. I read maybe 200 pages, 150 pages, and I was bored out of my fucking mind. And I know that the middle point is fantastic, bombastic, but then I've heard that from the 60% onward, the last 40% of the book is like a character exploration of what happens in that middle part. And because I was so bored, 1/3 of the novel, I couldn't even drag my feet to the middle part. I can't even imagine myself exploring the 40%. I was just like, it's probably like a novel that's structured in a way that really doesn't work for me. I don't know if it was the writing that didn't work for me. As of now, I say like, you know, the writing was fine, but ultimately I dragged myself through books, and I just couldn't do it with The Sword of Kagan. Sorry, there's a car alarm, but I want to make my point and then I'll move on while the car alarm is done. But I'm not taking away to how great this story, thank you car alarm, how great the story might be for some. I'm just saying, for me, it was quite a torture going through even those 150 pages, and I couldn't see myself continuing on. The next question is a bit of the opposite, because it talks about books that I enjoyed and many people didn't. And for this, I guess the one I've heard criticizing the most is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. This is the only Hoover book I enjoyed thus far. I think I've read 3 or 4 by her, but It Ends With Us and its exploration of domestic violence and the message linked to the actual title of the book, I loved it. Probably because of my background, work-wise and so on, but this book for me had a very important message and I really appreciated it. I also must say that a couple of books that probably one book, it's a YA, but it's a historical fiction that a lot of people didn't like because it was advertised wrongly. I think it was advertised as a fantasy story, and it's not. It's a historical fiction reimagined, and this is And I Darken. This is a reimagination of the story of Vlad Tepes, but you're looking at his son and daughter that were taken prisoner by the Ottomans, and Lada, the daughter, she wants to regain control over her territory, over her lands, and, you know, make something of herself. And I love Lada as a character. This worked really well for me, but I really knew, because again I had feedback from other people, that this was historical fiction and not a fantasy story. So loved Lada, loved the writing in this. And maybe the most actually hated, now actually let me take back what I said about It Ends With Us. The book that I particularly found it okay, I didn't love, but I found it okay, and everybody else hated, was Iron Flame. I don't get it, people. Like, I don't know what were you expecting. This was never a Shakespearean play to begin with. It wasn't the second one, but I didn't find the second one particularly different than the first one. Maybe that was the problem, but I also found the writing to still be okay. I found actually these to have quite action, especially toward the end, and I found the beginning part, it's a bit tiny bit slower, necessary to explain what happens in the later part of the stories. So I didn't have any issue with this. I didn't love it as I didn't love Fourth Wing, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed enough to continue on, and I didn't have any fucking problem with the second one. And I was just like, you guys have read worse shit. Like, I'm sure you did, because I've, you know, yeah, there are some trash out there that people love, and I like some trash too, to be fair. But I was like, this is not the worst. Like, this is objectively not the worst book you've ever read. Like, you can't tell me this is the worst book you've ever read. So I kind of had a bit of a reaction to that. I was like, why are people so much passion in these, where objectively I don't think there was so many reasons to consider other stuff are out there, and there are other similar or worse, technically speaking, than this. And the alarm is going off again. It's one of those days. Third question, love triangle where the main protagonist ended up with a character you didn't love. I remember what I answered in my previous one, which was a series by Armentrout. I'll pop it here. I didn't like how that ended, but more recently I didn't end up liking A Feather So Black. I liked this book, loved the writing, but I was in the wrong I was in the wrong camp, I guess. Despite me not despising the other option, I didn't love the final ultimate choice. And this is a retelling. It's a retelling of, I don't know, I don't remember of which story, but it's a retelling, but you follow basically a changeling that has been left in exchange with actual princess, and then she's coming of an age and she has to go and save a princess from the fairy kingdom, and because of her changeling power she can cross borders, she can get into fairylands, and she's accompanied on this adventure by a childhood friend and her first love. So they both go and they need to save the princess from this curse, the actual princess, and bring her back. And yeah, the title of the question says it all. A popular genre you hardly reach for: romance. I don't read romance, which is odd because I do like fantasy romance. I love fantasy romance, although I think I'm going like into like phases where I read a lot and then get a bit bored, and then I might read a bit more. But read fantasy romance I always enjoyed and I will always probably enjoy, while actually just genuine romance I don't like. The reason probably is because I know what's gonna happen, and so even in fantasy romance I know what's gonna happen, but the fantasy element transports me to a fantastical world where I'm quite engaged, and I like the idea of, you know, having powers and different creatures fall in love and so on. It's like so fantastical. While like a normal romance, they meet, they have things together, there is a crisis and they get back together. I liked, like, I've read books like, what's it called, The Book Lovers. It was fun, I had a good time, but I never picked up another one by her, not because I don't want to, but generally romance is something that I might read maybe once or twice a year, but no more than that. A popular book character you don't really like. Now this was a bit difficult for me. The most recent one probably, it's Shogun, John Blackthorne. This is historical fiction. It's adapted now in a popular TV show on Disney. The adaptation, John Blackthorne, I couldn't stand him, never got the appeal of him, and the alarm is going off again. But the actual character I thought about when I initially jotted down my answers for this question was Aisling from the Nevernight series. So I liked Mia, it's not Mia, but Aisling, it's a very important character from book number 2, God's Grave onward, and because I disliked her so much, I kind of loved Mia a bit less because of it, which is so wrong for me to judge someone for who they get along with. But yeah, Aisling really brought down the whole thing for me. That's how much I didn't like her. An author you don't seem to be able to get into. Adrian Tchaikovsky. I've tried Children of Time, DNF'd that. That's now one that I DNF'd this year. It's very popular, I'll admit that. I disliked his writing, and the thing is, because the premise of Children of Time is so cool, first contact with alien after Earth has been destroyed, and the fact that he managed to make even the like 200 pages or less that I read so boring, it got my nerves. It's like, probably you're not for me, like you can't butcher a premise like this. I just couldn't stand his writing. I don't know why. It's just something that it really made it boring, and I was upset that he had made it boring because it should never have been boring, such a cool premise. But another one is Carrie Maniscalco. Saying that I loathed their Jack the Ripper retelling is saying little. I hated that book. Stalking Jack the Ripper I hated. The Wicked, Fear of Kingdom of the Wicked thing, I enjoyed one book of that, the first one, and then she butchers the rest of the series. It's so wrong, so bad, so badly that I said never again. I'm not gonna read any of the spin-offs. She's not for me. there is something profoundly cheesy and just boring in their main protagonists and her plot. I'm upset now. Again, the thing with authors is that if you have such a cool premise and you butcher it with your writing, I just kind of get mad. I don't know why. So yeah, those two authors, probably never again. Probably. You never know in life. But a book trope you are tired of seeing, and I believe I gave the same answer when I did the other time the tag, I believe. But first of all, forgetting, like when, you know, you get to a point and then your main protagonist forgets everything and then you have to re-get to that point. No, I hate when characters forget stuff or forget who they are or forget their love interest. It's just the plot point that I hate when they forget. But more recently, I've been quite bored of horrors that are, in my opinion, just psychological and then turns out not to be actual horror. Like there's no monster, there's no actual weird stuff going on, it's all in their head. And I'm getting bored of that. I'm getting bored of horror that are just like, oh yeah, she's just, you know, it's just in her head, or it's just, you know, psychological fuck up. They ingested something and then psychologically, then, you know, they thought they've seen these things, so they carry you for like, I don't know, 400 pages and then it's nothing, it's all in their head. Not the biggest fan of that kind of horrors. If it's not done correctly, because I got a couple of things where it was psychological and I loved it, some of my favorite horror, but ultimately, because maybe some of my favorite horrors have been that premise, I've seen that premise done over and over again and I kind of got bored of it. A popular book you will probably never read, and I never say never, so take it with a pinch of salt. But I did DNF another one, keeping coming up with DNFs, Prior of the Orange Tree. Now I know it's a duology at least. I DNF'd that, never gonna go back into that. I've read the other series by her, which I quite enjoy, but that one, not for me. It was boring. I was just dragging my feet through, so probably won't read that duology. I won't continue on with The Witcher. I've read a couple of books and I prefer the video game so much and the TV show. Was fun. We'll see next season, but I don't see me reading The Witcher, the books. I don't like the translation. And also Earthsea by Ursula. This is the one that I'm more on the fence on, because I did read her when I was younger. I read her in my like late teenagehood, 20s, and I really found it boring. Therefore, I never reached out to the rest of her books. However, I don't know if, you know, now that I am so much older and that I would appreciate her books so much more. So as of now, I will probably postpone it, but I would never say never. But yeah, books by her, probably. Yeah, probably not gonna do it. I might also not continue on with Dune. I've read Dune. I was happy with, you know, it was a 3 stars for me. Nothing particularly wrong with it, but nothing particularly good with it. The movies are awesome. I might never continue on with the whole series. I never felt the pull of continuing with the Dune series. But let me know if I'm, you know, I'm being sacrilegious or whatever. And the last question, because I need to go, is the book is, you know, the book is always better, but what movie was actually the best? I don't know. I can only say Dune for now, but because I don't think I've read or watched many things this year. If I find a different answer, I will put here. But this question, I was like, I left it blank. I was like, yeah, Dune maybe. Well, I watched a few years ago. I need to watch the second one, but I'm not sure. Let me know what are your answers to these questions. If you're new, I would love for you to subscribe. Let's chat in the comments down below. Take care of yourself and I'll see you next time. Ciao!